Retro.
What's up, guys? This is Daniel Logan, Boba Fett from Attack of the Clones, The Clone Wars, Book of Boba, Skywalker Saga game, and hopefully many more things in the Star Wars galaxy. You are listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Yep, this is the way I've spoken.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we've got breaking news to get to at the top of this episode that we were not planning on talking about an hour before we started recording, but here we go. But before we get into that, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Yes, we are very easily found at Podcast Stardust on all your socials, including Facebook and Instagram.
All right, the Just is line, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So about an hour before we were going to record, my phone rang and I picked it up, and it was the public relations officer at Lucasfilm saying, "Hey, when are you all going to record your news? Because we got something you're going to want to talk about." And they said, "Oh, in an hour." And they're like, "Okay, give us 15 minutes. No, that didn't happen. But as
you had me going, Dennis.
As you can attest, what frequently happens is we sit down and record our news episode, and then either in the middle of recording it or right after we're done, when we still have other episodes to record, some big piece of news breaks and we don't get it out in that week's news. And so I was delightfully surprised when about an hour and a half before we were scheduled to record, this huge news about the structure of management at Lucasfilm dropped. And so let's dive right into it. Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Studios have announced a leadership transition. Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down as president to return to producing full-time. She will continue with the company as a producer for The Mandalorian and Grogu and Starfighter. Stepping up to take her place are not one, but two people in Dave Filoni, who we all know as the director and producer of Ahsoka, The Clone Wars, and other projects. He's worked with Jon Favreau on The Mandalorian and is helping him out with The Mandalorian and Grogu. And he will be the president and chief creative officer. He's already chief creative officer, but his title will now include president. But serving as co-president will be Lynwen Brennan, who has been with Lucasfilm since 1999. She started her tenure at Industrial Lights and Magic, where she rose to the ranks to become its leader in 2009. We got to see her some in the Light and Magic documentaries. She was then appointed to general manager of Lucasfilm in 2015 and president and general manager of Lucasfilm Business in 2024. So she's won awards for her innovation and achievements and the like, and so she's well respected in the industry. I get the feeling, Jay, that this partnership is Filoni is there to drive the storytelling and make the storytelling decisions on behalf of the franchise and figure out what they're going to do with movies and the like. Whereas Brennan is there in much more of a business management capacity and helping to drive the technology forward in a way that George Lucas would appear. But what is your take on that?
No, you totally nailed it. Absolutely. And I think it's such a smart setup for Lucasfilm and Disney to do this, because we've seen this work as a type of chemistry for things like Pixar, for example. So you've got Pete Docter and Jim Morris. And you've got, again, the creative on one side, the business on the other, and that's exactly what this is. So this is going to be great for handling all the multiple creative projects and, across all the different platforms and media and all the things. So, and it's not just on the burden of one person too, which obviously Kathleen Kennedy was very business savvy, and she has a lot of production chops and, creative chops and that type of thing going way, way back. But I think this is a perfect fit. It's a very smart move, personally, I think. What do you think?
Absolutely. We were all fond of Dave Filoni's work. Some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier, the Clone Wars, Rebels, Ahsoka, helping out Jon Favreau with The Mandalorian. So he had input on that, the Book of Boba Fett, and recently Ahsoka, and he's involved with The Mandalorian and Grogu and other projects going forward that I'm sure we know nothing about. I just don't know that he is the business guy to do that. I'm not sure that's where I don't know, but it's always struck me that he is a creative mind, not a business mind when it comes down to these things. And we've always, broken out the phrase, he learned at the feet of the master, George Lucas, when he's brought in, he got a PhD in Star Wars by working with George on the Clone Wars. And it comes up time and time again. If I have a concern, it's simply this. What's been the most renowned Star Wars project from the past few years?
Oh, Mando and Grogu, for sure. Mandalorian.
I would have said season 2 of Andor has been the most critically and well-received thing universally over there.
Okay.
He wasn't involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
And season 3 of The Mandalorian wasn't as well received as things like the first 2 seasons there. So would it have behooved Lucasfilm to bring in somebody? I'm not saying Tony Gilroy could have done the job, but maybe an outsider that is not so tied up into those old storytelling methods. Now, I'm not saying that Dave Filoni can't bring in those other storytellers, or he won't, but it just seems like the most well-regarded thing that we've had in Star Wars in the past couple of years has been Andor season 2. Is that what we need more of, or do we need to go back to the classic George Lucas style?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it matter?
That's a great question. I wonder too if Dave Filoni had been given the chance to work on Andor, if he would have, because given the fact that he had his hands, obviously creatively in a lot of other projects and some things going on at the same time, maybe time wise and workload wise, it just wasn't conducive for him. But, what I'm hoping is that, of course, Dave has been very hands-on with all of his projects that he's done, is that he continues to be hands-on. But yet again, maybe this is also going to give him a chance to do a little bit more cross-pollination, I guess you could say, and have his hands in more things than he would have had otherwise. So I get what you're saying, absolutely. But I just wonder if, if given the chance, if Dave would have been involved with Andor, or given the time opportunity, I guess.
Sure. I mean, I know he showed up on set at least periodically during that. And so there's that. I don't know how many projects he's going to be involved in on a day-to-day basis. And by that, I mean, as president of the company, can he take a super hands-on role with any particular project, or will he have to devote his time to overseeing everything? And act in much more of a producer's type of a capacity as opposed to, say, the director type of a capacity. And that could be a good thing. I mean, that could mean we could have a more consistent tone of storytelling across all the different Star Wars projects. But, if you're looking back at the last 2 years, we've had a variety of styles. We've had Ahsoka, which is very much in the Lucas style of doing things that Dave Filoni put out there. We've had The Acolyte, which was a bold choice, but not as well received across the board that Leslie Headland did. We've had Skeleton Crew, which you and I liked an awful lot, but it still didn't pull in great ratings. But that still felt a bit more like what George Lucas would do. And then we've had Andor, and now we're getting ready to get The Mandalorian and Grogu, which again involves Dave Filoni. And then there's Starfighter, which is Sean Levy there. So, that's a lot of different styles there. And so I guess I kind of raised my own counterpoint to my question there. I mean, maybe The Acolyte would have benefited from more hands-on from Dave Filoni there.
Yeah. And I think this will give him an opportunity, like you said, to dabble a little bit in all of it and maybe not have the hands-on day-to-day as much or as intensely as he would working on some of these other projects. But I really do hope that he continues to be as hands-on as possible. But I do think with having Lynwen Brennan on his side, that might give him an opportunity to do exactly that. But I get what you're saying. There's that diversity of having different creative people in charge of different projects. And I think that that's still going to happen. It's just going to be under, obviously, the very watchful eye of Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
And Dave's always been very fan first. So he listens to the fans. He pays attention to what we like, what we don't like.
He loves to tease
And
us.
he does love to tease us. That is very true.
Mhm.
But I'm very, very optimistic for sure.
Yeah, I don't take any of my questions as me casting doubt and aspersions
Oh
on Dave
no,
Filoni
I get
there.
it.
It's
Mhm.
but it's just I think this is a good move. Time will tell for certain in this situation. With when it comes to Lynwen Brennan, it's harder to speak as to her achievements because she has not been so public facing
Mhm.
compared to Dave Filoni in this. But she led ILM for years. Well, they're the innovators, they're the leaders in that
Right.
field, so that's a great thing. And then we know she's been general manager of Lucasfilm business, so I kind of get the feeling that she's going to be doing a lot of the things that she's already doing, maybe a few additional tasks. But this comes as this promotion for her being co-president as much as to keep her on board as anything, I suspect,
Mhm.
because she's crucial to operations there. I just don't think I don't, again, I think I'm putting Dave Filoni. It sounds like I'm putting Dave Filoni down. I say he's not capable of running the business side. I just know that he's interested in running the business side.
Mhm.
And why not get somebody who's been doing it for years and years and years? Let him concentrate on the stories and bringing us the great Star Wars action that we want.
Right, right. And what's ironic is just the fact that Brennan is someone that, as you said, isn't quite the like poster child, if you will, for
Mhm.
Star Wars ILM and Skywalker Sound and the like. But yet she's been behind the scenes doing all of these amazing things, which I'll admit I had to look her up, and say,
Mhm.
okay, like what is it that she's contributed? Oh my gosh, how did I
Yeah.
not know any of this?
Mhm.
So I think now that she's more at the forefront, obviously all eyes are going to be on she and Dave to, recalibrate basically a lot of the creative decisions that have been made.
Right, right. Well, and then we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Kathleen Kennedy. That was George Lucas's chosen successor when he was stepping down from running Lucasfilm and selling the company to Disney. Bob Iger and the bigwigs at Disney kept her on board. She shepherded in our sequel trilogy, Rogue One, Solo, A Star Wars Story. She was the driving force behind, a new series, The Mandalorian and Grogu, or The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's the movie, but The Mandalorian. John Favreau pitched the idea. She brought to life as the first big new thing on Disney Plus when Disney Plus launched. It launched with The Mandalorian. And then she's overseen Andor, overseen Ahsoka, all these other shows that have been out there. Is her track record spotless? No, but show me producers who is out there.
Mhm.
And I think she's done a fantastic job filling the shoes that she had to fill. And so, I'm grateful that she ran it for as long as she did, but she's closer to the end of her career than she is the beginning at this point. And
Mhm.
so I could see the attraction for her for stepping down and concentrating on producing and not running the entire studio anymore.
Yeah, and go her for wanting to still do this. She's
Hmm.
72,
Yeah.
which blows my mind because she definitely does not look 72. So it's just proof that, just like John Williams, when you get to do what you love, you never work a day in your life, so to speak. But I will agree with you. Her legacy has definitely been a complex one, especially with fans. But there's no denying that she expanded the franchise in ways that, we never would have thought possible, with everything going on. And it was just such a great time for Star Wars fans because she helped films gross, several $1 million worthwhile, if not billions.
Hmm.
She really did help establish Disney Plus as a fan destination, for Star Wars content. So there's that. But, obviously fans are a little bit polarized or mixed, on what she's helped accomplish, her decisions and that type of thing. But, overall, we wouldn't have what we have if it
Yeah.
wasn't for her being at the helm. So thank you for 14 years.
And by the time we get Starfighter, she'll have produced more movies than George Lucas in the Star Wars universe.
Wow, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It's really
Agreed.
crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for everything going forward. This is part of a bigger transitional period for Disney. At the end of
Mhm.
this year, Bob Iger is set to step down, and there'll be a new CEO. In some ways, I was surprised about this. And I can't help but wonder if Alan Bergman, who's the president of Disney Entertainment, I think, is going to be the new CEO of the country based on the way these announcements came out. Because, Dave Filoni was talking about how great it was to work with George and Kathleen Kennedy, and now this collaboration with Brennan, and then Brennan was talking about again how wonderful it's been to work with all of them. But they both mentioned Bob Iger and Alan Bergman in this. And I only say it this way, and I guess I'm kind of leading with the cart as opposed to the horse here. If Bob Iger is going to step down at the end of the year, I almost would have thought they would leave it to his successor to pick who the successor wanted to run Lucasfilm.
Mhm.
And since they're making this announcement now, I can't help but wonder if maybe with Alan, with Bergman being part of these announcements, I can't help but wonder if maybe he's the new CEO, or he's going to,
Mhm.
that's announcement that we're going to be some. I don't know that much about him in order to speak intelligently about this, but the bigger point is that this move has been rumored for several weeks now, that Dave Filoni
Right.
and Lynwen Brennan were going
Yes.
to be taking over. We just haven't talked about it because there's been no official announcement, but more
Mhm.
and more people have been picking up on it, more and more sources. But there was always just that little bit of doubt at the back of my mind, given the big change that's coming at Disney by the end of the year. But here we are. They've announced it. I was kind of surprised by the timing of this today. I was not expecting anything like that. So
Yeah, it is kind of interesting timing. There's not really a rhyme or reason to that at all. And I'm wondering too, has anyone really talked to, not that it matters because obviously he doesn't own any part of it anymore, George Lucas, what his opinion or reaction is to this? I imagine he's probably tickled because he's always, obviously really admired Dave Filoni and took him under his wing. As you said, he was at the feet of George Lucas from the beginning of the Clone Wars and then, all the way up through. But I'd be interested to know what George feels about this.
Yeah, I just did a quick search while you were saying that. That's because that's an excellent point, and I haven't found any quotes yet. But I suspect at some point in the next week we will have some sort of comment from George. I'm assuming he's happy about this,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't consulted just to get his input on, do you think Dave would be a good leader for this? And I would imagine he would give him his endorsement, unless there's been some falling out that we don't know about for the past few years. But the way that Dave talks about George, I'm assuming not. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good point. We'll have to keep our eyes out for that. And once we have that, we will share it here on another news episode. But yeah, that's the latest. It's really brand new news. This is our initial thoughts on it. I imagine we'll be hearing more about this in the week or two ahead. And as we get more details, should they be sufficient, we will definitely be talking about them here on the podcast. So,
Mm-hmm.
but with that, we've got some other fun announcements and developments that we need to cover. And first is just a really fun story with a bit of a reveal about Starfighter, which is coming out again in May of 2027. But John Levy, who's constantly being interviewed, it was talking to the New York Times, and he dropped a little story about how Tom Cruise came to visit the set of Starfighter, had planned on just watching, but then Levy handed him a camera and told him to shoot a lightsaber duel.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. And so Levy goes on to say, last week, Steven Spielberg was here, and now Tom Cruise is wielding a camera, ruining his very nice shoes. Because I guess this lightsaber battle was in the water or something.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say, now when you see the movie, it's you'll know that part of it was shot by Tom. I mean, how cool is that? Well, it's very cool.
You're
It's
not
also
kidding.
kind of bizarre. So, but one, okay, Tom Cruise shot part of a Star Wars movie, and two, there's a lightsaber battle in it.
That's
And
big.
yeah, well, that is big. It's like it's
Mhm.
Star Wars, so of course a lightsaber is always a possibility, but they haven't disclosed that there's anybody who's like really capable of using a lightsaber in this movie,
Mhm.
or B would even have one. So strike up the speculation machine. Let's go with this. And
Right?
this is exactly the thing I was talking about when we were doing our 2026 preview, and how I was excited for the theory crafting and the speculation and the hype that's going to come for Starfighter this year. And so I'm there for this. And I love this little details because it's just one more nugget for us to fuel our imagination. And look, I know there's an entire corner of Star Wars fans out there. And if you don't want to speculate because you think it's going to ruin your enjoyment of the movie, that's, hey, cool. I get that. I just say speculate responsibly. Don't get married to your theories out there. You know what? It's fun to think about those things, but enjoy it. We're going to learn a lot of stuff about this movie over the next year, and it's fun to think about and imagine where those things can go.
And you know what's phenomenal about this whole thing is that when I saw this in our notes, and I've seen a few snippets about this over the past week or so, is the fact that it's not so much that Tom Cruise was there and shooting the scene, but as soon as I saw that it was a lightsaber duel, I thought to myself, "Oh, Dennis is going to love this." That, like you said, this is part of the hype. This is part of the speculation. This is part of the, "Ooh, who could it be? What could it be?" So, that part of it definitely stands out.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's insane.
I just love how we're getting this stuff about this movie like in breadcrumbs. The occasional
Yes.
picture from Sean Levy, the little bits about the casting, and now this little drop here. He just casually spills that Tom Cruise filmed a lightsaber duel. So keep going, Sean.
Definitely.
I love it. I love it. All right.
And you know what I love about this too is a couple things. One, it's just like, casually throwing out there that, yeah, Tom Cruise and Sean Levy are friends,
Mhm.
and at least peer respect at the very least. And, Steven Spielberg shows up here and there and whatever. But I think it's cool that it's basically Sean Levy not being territorial
Mhm.
in, the creative process, and to me, that's just super cool, and the
Yeah.
fact that Tom Cruise, obviously, he's had so much experience with rigging, and I mean, if the guy can learn how to, drive his own jet fighter and whatnot, he can operate a camera, but it's like a normal Tuesday for Tom Cruise, I guess, but I just think it's so cool that this actually happened, and like they said in the article, when you see the movie, you'll be able to say, "Ooh, I know that was shot by Tom." And I
Yeah.
just think that's super cool.
Well, I mean, imagine there was multiple cameramen filming that part, but at least part of it will
Mhm.
be his, and I'll be looking for his name in the credits when
Yes.
if I roll. Maybe not the
Yeah.
first viewing, but on some viewing, or at least when it comes home for streaming, I'll pause it somewhere so I can see that. But
Yeah. Unless he's gonna go by a different, name, kinda like Carrie Fisher did whenever she did the script doctoring, he's gonna be the camera doctor now
he's
for
going to be Com Truise. So,
Oh, there you go. That's
okay.
classic Star Wars. Do a little bit of switcho changeo with the lettering.
All right. Well, we've got a bit of experience type news, and the first is that the Black Spire outpost that you can find in Disneyland is expanding its timeline. So, beginning April 29th, and only the Disneyland Galaxy's Edge, they are going to redo the timeline to include original trilogy characters. So, rather than seeing Kylo Ren wandering around with First Order stormtroopers, you can expect to see Darth Vader with Imperial stormtroopers near the TIE echelon that's already there in Galaxy's Edge. Apparently, he'll be there looking for Luke. Meanwhile, Han Solo will join Chewbacca hanging out around the Millennium Falcon. And then you can find Luke and Leia around the park. Luke is going to be said to be looking for Force artifacts, while Leia is looking for recruits for the rebellion, all while John Williams' iconic music plays in the background. So this is huge. Now, you don't have to worry. Rey is still going to show up from time to time. The Rise of the Resistance area is still going to be grounded in the sequel trilogy. It's been said that Ahsoka, the Mandalorian, and Grogu, who already make appearances there, will continue to be around from time to time. But anyways, there's a few other changes that we'll get to in a second. But I've laid out just the character changes there. Jay, what do you think about this change to Galaxy's Edge?
Oh, I think it's super exciting, and
Mhm.
the more that I think about it, the more I think it's such a power move on their
Mhm.
part because Batuu is great, and the whole Galaxy's Edge, idea of being set within the sequel trilogy kind of timeline was awesome, but kind of redoing this and rebranding it is almost like, taking the DeLorean and going, back to the future kind of thing. So you're looking at canon events that can happen conjunctively, or simultaneously or paralleling with other things going on. Because like you said, Rey's still going to be there. And what I think is super exciting about this is it's almost like it opens up so many more options as far as being able to do very specific story chapters, I guess you could say, in the Star Wars timeline, but yet be a little bit more immersive to all the different timelines. I love how they're kind of redoing some of the areas to make them look quote unquote younger, as if they would have looked during the original trilogy, timeline kind of thing. So, the like Doc Ondars, for example, is going to get a little bit more of a scrub. Some of the different merch areas are going to look a little bit different. I love the fact that the original trilogy, John Williams music is going to be playing. It's kind of sad that, the music that he wrote specifically for Galaxy's Edge won't be used anymore as a roaming music. But I think it's a smart move because that is, so identifiable. I don't care who you are and how much experience you've had with Star Wars. You're going to recognize that music and it's going to really resonate and be synonymous. One thing that I thought about, though, in terms of the way that the characters are being shown or depicted, for example, with Leia, she has an outfit that they're calling Adventure Leia. And it's, for some people, they're saying it's more of her like Battlefront 2 look, or comic book appearances, that type of thing. And so it's not going to be the traditional Leia that a lot of people know from, her different white outfits or whatever. So this kind of makes me wonder, okay, could they do different versions of different characters as well eventually? So we've got Mandalorian version Ahsoka. Could they do Clone Wars version Ahsoka? Obviously with the different timelines, could they blend a lot of that different kind of stuff eventually? But I think this is a very smart move on their part to do this.
Yeah. Well, Leia's costume was in fact inspired by Battlefront 2 and the comics. And so they wanted to come up with a new look for her that would make sense here in Batuu. And there's going to be a tie-in comic to this whole change as to why the rebellion and the Empire have shown up at Batuu. That's going to be coming out from Marvel before that. So we'll get someone's explanation there. The average person going to these parks is not going to have read this comic, but it's there if you want it. But I'm fine with the costume. I think that's cool. It's going to be the fact that Leia is going to be there. That's cool. And so that's great. A couple of thoughts here. This change might have bothered me if they had stuck with the original vision for Batuu, which is when they announced this and they were hyping it up, they were telling us things like we were going to have wandering droids, that you would go into Smelger's Run and complete your mission. And then maybe you have gotten a really high score or something. And then when you showed up in Oga's Cantina, some character would be there and know that you had an outstanding score and would say, hey, this drink's on me or something, or thanks for doing that. And I've got a mission for you, and send you off to go do something else. Or the little games that you can play in Galaxy's Edge would give you some sort of a standing, either with the Resistance or the First Order, and that would change the way you're received in different parts of the park. They initially planned this as a more innovative area for storytelling for each individual guest, that you would go there and have your own story and have your own adventure, kind of like what they were doing with the Galactic Star Cruiser. But that never panned out. Part of the reason is because this came out right before COVID hit. And so that kind of suppressed innovation and stuff like that. And two, when you're on Galactic Star Cruiser, you're only dealing with max 250 guests. When you've got an average park day, there's thousands of people that come through. You cannot tailor the experience for every individual guest, and that's fine. Meanwhile, in Disney's California Adventure, they have the Avengers Campus. And what are they doing there? They have not tied it down to any one particular time period. They'll have characters there that are fresh off whatever the new show is on Disney Plus or whatever the most recent movie is that's in the theaters. And then they'll bring in classics, even characters that have perished or whatever, and they roam the park, and they aren't concerned about continuity so much there. And it's so well received. I think this will breathe a lot of, I love Galaxy's Edge. It didn't need to be changed for me to want to go back. And it's just, what does my pocketbook say about whether I can go back? And when can I take the time? But this makes me want to go back sooner rather than later to Galaxy's Edge and see all these things. We're already getting the update to Smuggler's Run with the Mandalorian and Grogu adventure. They're going to leave Rise of the Resistance alone. That's fine. But I think getting, as opposed to relying on the ambient sounds so much, and then the broadcasts and things like that you could hear throughout the park, now having a much more of a music presence, that's, as George Lucas says, or as others have said, I should say, John Williams, the music is the oxygen of Star Wars there.
Yes.
And so having that music there is going to enhance the experience quite a bit. So I think this is an overall positive when it comes down to it. Again, if they could have pulled off everything that they had dreamed up for this park, then it would have made sense just to keep it tied to a specific time period. But since you're not doing that, there's really no need to worry about crossing time periods and having characters from all eras show up in this and there now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans would actually appreciate that. Like you said, just bouncing off that Marvel idea. And that's why I mentioned Ahsoka in the Clone Wars.
Right. So some of the other things that are coming, I already mentioned the comic, the First Order Cargo, which is the shop next to that TIE Echelon that Kylo Ren usually hangs out by, is becoming Black Spire Surplus. And it's a one-stop shop for faction gear, both the Empire and the Rebellion. And they've created a little backstory, which is fun for this, that it was founded by two former clones. After the Clone Wars, one went on to serve the Empire, the other Rebellion. Then they retired and decided to go into business together when they were selling military surplus.
Oh my gosh, love that.
Right. And then you'd kind of touched on some of the updates that are going to be happening. Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, Savi's Workshop, and the Droid Depot are all going to be getting some tweaks there to help kind of bring it into that classic time period. The question that remains for me is, why are they only doing this at Disneyland and not bringing it to the Galaxy's Edge at Disney World at Hollywood Studios? I don't have an answer for that. I haven't seen one yet. I'm just curious.
Yeah, because you would think that what they would do at one park, they would do at another. And I would kind of chalk it up as maybe almost like beta testing it. But then again, I don't know. That's a good question. Unless they're doing this purposely so that if somebody wants the quote unquote original version, they can go to Florida. And if they want the updated version, they can go to California, I guess.
Well, now that we're talking about it, I wonder if these two versions of Batuu were virtually identical when they opened, with very small differences between them. I'm wondering now if they're going to diverge a bit so that there's some experiences that you can do at one but not the other that will encourage people to visit both parks and check everything out. On the one hand, I kind of like the fact that when you and I got to go to Galaxy's Edge ahead or around Star Wars Celebration in 2022, that was so long ago.
So crazy.
Man, 3.5 years ago. Wow.
I know.
Okay. Doesn't feel like that long, but here we are. But when we were there, it's like, okay, I've now done Galaxy's Edge. I don't have to worry about going to see the one in Orlando at this point. And when it comes to Star Wars, I try to suppress my completist tendencies, but it's hard, it's, and if there's experiences that are available in one and not the other and vice versa, then there's going to be that drive to go there. So, I mean, more is great. And I like the offerings, but I do kind of like that. You've had the experience. You don't have to worry about spending several thousand more dollars to go to the other place and have the experience.
Yes, Disney definitely picked out on the fear of missing out, or FOMO aspect of a lot of fans. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to get there ahead of Celebration in 2027 or around Celebration 2027 and to check all it out and have some more blue milk, green milk, and
now pink
Bronco
milk
wraps. Yeah, and the pink milk that we were talking about just the other day, and taking in the changes that have arrived at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, we need to do that. We need to make sure we plan that for Celebration so that we can finally see each other again. It's crazy.
Indeed. I am planning on being there. I'm going to make it happen. So,
Me too.
okay.
It's going to be a month before Colby One's wedding, but we're gonna
Busy time of year for you. Yeah.
it's going to be very, very busy.
Yeah. Well, I've got potentially another trip coming right up after that, but that's something to be discussed another time. But at any rate, final thing, which is also experiential, the BD droids that we have seen rolled out in Galaxy's Edge and previously in the atrium on the Disney Wish made a surprise appearance a week or so ago on the Disney Wish when they infiltrated the hyperspace lounge and then later the cargo bay in the Oceaneers Club for the kids and interacted with guests. And I don't know if you've seen any of the footage of this floating around social media. They're not really promoting it on any of their websites or the parks blog or anything like that. But I suddenly need to get back on the Wish too. I mean, if I didn't have enough travel plans with wanting to go to the parks to experience the Change of Galaxy's Edge and Celebration and this, and now I need to add another cruise onto the list.
Yep. See, there they go with that fear of missing out. Once again,
Mhm.
it's so it's so much fun though to see these little droids getting out and about. I mean, hey, everybody needs a vacation, right? So
Yeah.
they got themselves a cruise.
Yeah. That's pretty cool though. I mean, I really like the hyperspace lounge. The one time I sailed on the Wish, we were in there like 4 different times and just enjoyed watching the ship go into hyperspace and end up on all these different places. And I thought the drinks were fun. And there's some other fun artifacts in there. It hasn't met the expectations of some Star Wars fans, but it worked just fine for me. But I think this kind of thing gives it a shot in the arm, making it a little bit more interactive, especially since the new ships that have come out since the Wish have had the Haunted Mansion themed bar in its place, which is way more immersive and has really pleased a lot of people there. So I hope they can continue to do stuff. This ship is going to go into dry dock in 2027. And so after the rumor is, and there's pretty strong evidence to support it, that it's going to be doing the European season for Disney Cruise Line, and then it'll go to dry dock. And usually there's some upgrades and things that are made to it there. I'm hoping they can enhance that space even more with more Star Wars stuff to make it that bit more immersive, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's built-in entertainment. You can look at it that way. That's pretty cool.
Indeed.
Little guys walking around.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I want to see it. Okay. Well, then that'll do it for this episode of Podcast Stardust. Thank you all for joining us as we've went through this huge piece of news at the beginning and some more fun things along the way. And if you've enjoyed the discussion, we would invite you to subscribe to the podcast if you have not done so already. We're available on pretty much all the platforms. And if we aren't on your preferred platform, please let us know. We'll give you some contact information in a little bit, and I will see what I can do to get it there. You can also find our entire back catalog over at retrozap.com, along with all of the other great shows that are on the networks. And after you've had a chance to digest the show a little bit, we'd love it if you could give us a rating and review wherever it is that you are listening to the podcast. So, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what the social media contacts are one more time and where else we can be found online?
Sure, you can say hello there, or should I say bright sun, since we've got all this Galaxy's Edge news here. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And Pinterest is another place where you can find lots of things for everything Star Wars. And then you can also listen to us on YouTube as well as YouTube Music, in addition to all of our other streaming platforms that Dennis was mentioning. And you can also email us. We'd love some emails, podcaststardust@gmail.com. Please send us questions. And we're looking to put together some listener questions for episode 1000 or somewhere around there. So please send us those. And if you are in need of a closet refresh or just some new Podcast Stardust swag, you can hit up our link in the show notes. That will take you to our TeePublic store, where you can pick from one of 7 show logo designs on everything from t-shirts and sweatshirts to coffee mugs and all kinds of fun things. So once again, hit up that link in our show notes.
Okay, upcoming on the show on the Monday, we're getting into another episode of the Clone Wars as part of our rewatch of that series. And then on Wednesday, it is Jay's episode, the next episode of Jay's segment called World Between Worlds, where she's round up Star Wars fashion and lifestyle products from around the galaxy and is going to tell us the latest about all of that. So thanks for listening to episode 987 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.